It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up? YouTube, it's your boy Millsy. Back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew version 1.0 deck with the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I'd really appreciate it if you get to interact with the video, do all that YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, check out the links. I'd appreciate it. But today, we're continuing through Transformers Week, and again, the goal was to try to pick some of the less known robots that we can play when I can, pick some random ones, and so today we're going to take a look at Flamewar Brash Veteran, a 3-mana Rakdos robot that has more than meets an eye for just a Rakdos, a black and a red. On the front side, we can sack an artifact to put a counter on Flamewar and convert it. We can only do it at sorcery speed. And then we can pay 1 and pitch our hand to put all exiled cards with intel counters on them into your hand. You may ask what an intel counter is. Well, on the back side, when Flamewar deals damage to a player, we get to exile that many cards from the top of our library with intel counters on them and convert it back over. So the kind of goal is we're going to be hitting people with Flamewar, getting cards into exile to get back. In order to get them, we have to sacrifice our hand. So I think we kind of want to approach this from a couple different angles. We want to be pitching cards, right, to get the cards back, so we can care about discarding cards. We need artifacts to sacrifice so that Flamewar can grow, so we want to think about that as well. And then I don't think Flamewar sacking artifacts, honestly, is just going to be enough. So we need to find some other thing in the deck to kind of prop it up. And I think the best thing that makes sense is doing some of the artifacts aristocrat style combos and abilities, and we'll talk about those just a little bit later. I want to say a quick thank you to all the members of the channel. Thank you so much for supporting us as ABB members. For just $1 a month, you can get all of our videos early, so check it out in the links below. But all right, what can we do to make artifacts to sacrifice? Well, there's a lot of ways to look at this. I think treasures are probably one of the easiest things in our 2 colors to do. There's a lot of things in the deck that can make it, but you have something like Grim Hirelings. Whenever one of our creatures hit a player, we make 2 treasures. One or more of our creatures hit a player and make 2 treasures, could potentially get up to 6 per turn. Hireling Pack is a little bit of removal on itself, but again, the point is having extra of these artifacts around seems like a great idea to be able to sack for Flamewar's ability. Stride Hanger says anytime we would make an artifact token, we get to make them plus a Thopter. So this is nice because over the course of us making these tokens sacrifice, we can kind of accumulate Thopters as another threat. Battleforged Battle Axe says whenever the creature it's equipped to deals damage to a player, we get to make a token that's a copy of it. This is a nice way to potentially every turn get another copy because Flamewar does have Menace and Death Touch, a combination that may make people not want to block it, especially while it's still very small, 3-4 power. And so I think that could allow us with the Battle Axe to get the buff to have more cards get into exile, but at the same time still make sure we're getting copies of the axe that we could sack if we want to. We have things like Mycosynth Wellspring and Prize Statue that each have an ability that happens when they come in and when they go to the graveyard. So Wellspring gets us you a basic land, Prize Statue gets you a treasure. Again, you play them, have them come in, you get their abilities, and then sack them to Flamewar, right? Get that counter, get the leaving the battlefield ability going to the graveyard, and now you've gotten so much value out of these little enchantments. We also have something like Oni Call Anvil, which is nice because it says whenever one of our artifacts we control leave the battlefield during your turn, you get a construct, and it only goes off once per turn. This is really nice because, to be 100% honest, as long as we can get 1 sacrificing, we could start getting constructs every turn that we could sacrifice right to Flamewar later, so we kind of get to start this process going. And then Anvil does have the option to start sacking a artifact to deal 1 damage to each opponent as well. But I like the Anvil for just helping us fund our plan by just needing to get 1 sack going, and then we can get a bunch of them. The Reaver Cleaver and Sticky Fingers are both going to help make us treasures when a creature gets in for damage. Sticky Fingers just gets 1 if it hits a player and does give the creature menace, so it could go on something else but Flamewar, if we want more chances to get them. The Reaver Cleaver is great because it gives +1/+1 in Trample, and then whenever you hit a player in combat, you get treasures equal to the amount of damage dealt, which is really nice and can really stack up our treasures for some of the things we're going to talk about later on in our thought. But all right, we have Flamewar hit, right, so that we can exile cards and get them with these counters on them, and we want to get them back. But in order to get them back, we got to pitch our hand. So if we're going to pitch our hand, I think it makes sense to try to get value when we're pitching our hand. Well, Archfiend of Ivnir can hand out -1/-1 counters to our opponent's control for each card we discard. Surly Badgersaur says that if we discard a creature card, we put a counter on it. If we discard a land card, we get a treasure. If we discard a non-creature, non-land card, it fights up to one creature we don't control. Surly Badgersaur could be a nice threat on its own. The Cryptcaller Chariot can make some zombie tokens whenever we discard one or more cards. Brass's Tunnel Grinder, we'll see on each end step if we've descended, meaning if a permanent hit our graveyard, which we can do by discarding, and then it can flip over a card that can help us discover into more spells. Monument of Endurance says whenever we discard a card, we can choose one that hasn't been drawn this turn, hoping to get us both a card up to all of a card, a treasure, and 3 life for each opponent. Again, if we're discarding more than 3 cards, we're going to get the maximum on the Endurance. But the point is, find these abilities that we could take advantage of. But we have artifacts laying around, and we're using them. And so I think we also need to take advantage of abilities that are going to help us with this. Things like Duretti, which can help us get artifacts back. Maybe they got destroyed or we had to sacrifice by sacrificing one and bringing an artifact back from our graveyard. Let's say we had to pitch one from our hand. We'd get it back with Duretti. Artillerist is one of the few creatures in our deck that deals damage to each opponent whenever artifacts come in, making those Reaver Cleaver step abilities that make treasures like Grim Hireling so good because we're dealing out damage after we're dealing out damage. Mishra giving all of our permanents wards sacrifice a permanent is really nice. Kind of helping our opponents have to pay just a little bit more if they're going to remove our things, and then giving all of the artifacts in our graveyard on Earth means we could potentially get them back for a key turn if we need them. Reckless Fireweaver, same thing on the damage. We get to play the pair of Cranial Plating and Cranial Ram, giving a buff for each artifact we control. The fun part here is the plating actually can attach at instant speed. A really nice thing for Flamewar, can really make Flamewar into a commander damage threat because it can get that big buff. But the Ram's not bad either, giving a creature a big buff if it has menace or flying or something like that to get in for some big damage. But I think where we take this coy idea of pitchy cards and getting cards back and take it to the next level is caring about every single creature and artifact we control leaving the graveyard to go to the battlefield to go to the graveyard and try to get profit from it. Crom Novelist gets a little bit of a buff and a counter and adds us a red mana whenever we sacrifice an artifact. Disciple of the Vault has a target opponent lose a life. Marionette Apprentice lets each opponent lose a life whenever a creature or artifact goes into the graveyard. Marionette Master has a target opponent lose life equal to its power, which is most of the time going to be 4 because we're probably going to fabricate the counters on it when it comes in. And then Age of the Iron Throne, whenever an artifact or creature we control is put in the graveyard to the battlefield, as long as our commander is out as well, each opponent loses a life. These are the things that we can stack up turn over turn, right? But I think where we really start to stack them up is by creating loops where we can do this enough times to knock everybody out at the table. This is a very common thing in artifact decks. This is not a Flamewar thing. This is a very common thing. And to do that, we need a couple creatures and certain sacrifice artifacts. So the key creatures we want to see, and there's a couple more, but these are the 3 main ones you're going to see in most of these combos, are things like Junk Driver, Me Retriever, and Workshop Assistant. The way they work are whenever they die, you're going to return another artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. The goal for all of these is to cost less than 4 mana. And the reason is because we have 2 artifacts in our deck that are going to allow us to sacrifice an artifact for mana. Ashnod's Altar, which lets us sacrifice a creature for 2 double colorless, and Kruk Clan Ironworks, which lets us sacrifice a artifact for 2 colorless mana. So the way this loop is going to work is we need to get one of them into the graveyard, and it's actually okay to get them into the graveyard with Ashnod's Altar or Kruk Clan. Then we need to have get the second one down the turn to start it. Sack that to the Ashnod's Altar or the Kruk Clan. When it hits the graveyard, it's going to return the other one back. We should hopefully now, by sacrificing both of them to the altar, have enough mana to get the other one back down, sack it to the altar, bring the other one back to our hand. Now we have this loop of creatures coming in, dying, going to the graveyard, and coming back to our hand. And if we can profit from either them coming in with one of our creatures that deals damage when they come in, or any of our aristocrat pieces that benefit from them dying, going to the graveyard, we're now creating a loop that we can do as many times as we need to knock our opponents out. Now, there's other ways to take advantage of this loop in adding other ways to do it with both Blasting Station and Grinding Station. These are artifacts that say we could tap to sacrifice a creature to deal 1 damage to target creature or player, and Grinding Station, which mills somebody for 3. But whenever an artifact comes back in, we get to untap them. If we can either expand on the combo by making more things whenever our artifacts come in or die, like let's say getting a treasure with something like Pit of Splendor or some of the other aristocrat pieces you have, you can start to work Blasting Station and Grinding Station, tapping and untapping in your combos to start using them for damage. It's a little bit harder than some of the other aristocrat pieces we talked about, but there are other options that you can use. But I've said it before on the show and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at Flamewar, and we're trying to pack a lot of value into a commander that may not be as obvious as some of the other probably commanders you're thinking about in this space. So going into testing, I would say, are we able to get enough treasures or artifacts around to really value Flamewar and get it going? Right now, the deck currently sits as a 3. And the only reason the deck currently sits as a 3 is because I had the money in the budget to add a Jessica's Will into it. I think it probably would fit this deck more to take Jessica's Will out, put it back down to a 2, and probably sit it in that bracket. But I think brackets are still new and people are still adjusting to them. And I think you could still get some interesting games in a 3 depending on where people's decks are in the 3. So I think this is a pretty low 3 in all reality. It has fun combos, but it's going to take you a while and a lot of getting there right to get them. So the cards in front of you for the cards to consider are things like Seize the Spoils and Fanatical Offering that can do some drawing and put some artifact creatures down, just having more ways to get access to them. And then Trash for Treasure is just a way to, let's say we have an artifact in our battlefield we don't care about, but we really want one that's in our graveyard. This is just a way to get an artifact in our graveyard back, kind of like what Duretti might be able to do for us. Again, there's going to be a world where maybe you need a junk winder and a workshop assistant, but you see the assistant really early, but it takes you a while to find the junk diver. Well, let's say maybe we have a way to let junk driver go to the graveyard, but then later in the game, we have a way to get it back. Then we could still use it to combo up and do what we need to do. But let's get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of a playtest on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to determine our best plays, but it's to start getting through some game situations where we could see how our deck sets up. Here we're keeping a 4-lander with Mayhem Devil. This is another one of our aristocratic type pieces. It says whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, it deals 1 damage to any target. So we've got the Krark Clan, and we've got a damage outlet. So all we need to see is 2 of those guys, right? And I think we'd be in really good shape. And then Oni Cult, right, makes us that construct once each turn. All right, well, turn 1, we see a Tainted Peak. I think there's pretty much nothing we're going to do turn 1, so we're going to go ahead and get that in tap. Turn 2, we see a Mirror Retriever. Okay, so we're starting to make our way towards... Tainted Peak's a little awkward since we don't have a swamp. We're starting to make our way towards that combo. Flamewar says it could flip back over again. A good way to start digging. We can bring it in on his backside. Wouldn't have haste this turn, but we could set it up right for next turn. And there's the Workshop Assistant. All right, so we are a couple turns away from making it happen. Now we have the pieces. I think we get the Oni Call Anvil down, right? Look to maybe put down the Mayhem Devil next turn, and let's try to attack. I think there's a world where we get in for 2 this turn. So we've got a Duretti and a Monument of Endurance in our pile to put into with intel counters. So not bad, and then that flips Flamewar back over. Come to our next turn. Man, King of the Tap lands or lands that don't matter. I want to get Krark Clan down because it's kind of the last real thing we need to get started, right? Mayhem, get that Foreboding Ruins in tapped. I don't think I want to pitch my hand just yet, right? Because we need to get them to the graveyard, and they only bring each other back when they die, right? So I can't discard them and get them back. I think this turn we could try to attack with Flamewar if we want to, but we're kind of in that awkward space where I think we really need another turn to really get ahead. Well, there's the swamp to turn Tainted Peak on, but again, it's just another tap land. I think we play the Krark Clan, or do we play the Retriever? right? And just plan to try to like sack it to Flamewar this turn to flip it back over, and we'd still be able to get it back with Krark-Clan. That's my thought, is maybe we sack it to Flamewar this turn to flip it over. That also makes me the construct. So I have that now. That's going to deal 1 damage to somebody. Have it attack to mill, right? I'm assuming we're going to hit probably 3 more. And then convert it back over. And again, we don't want to pitch our hand just yet, because we want to get that Krark-Clan down, right? And there's Reaver Cleaver. That actually probably would have helped us a ton last turn. 6 mana to equip it. Right now we'd be hitting for potentially 4 treasures. If I go like this, 3, 4, 7. I technically, I believe, would have enough to start the combo right now. Because here's what we would do, right? We would sacrifice the Workshop Assistant to the Krark-Clan. That gets me a Construct and a Mayhem Devil trigger, which is going to deal 1 damage to somebody. I'm going to put Mirror Retriever back into my hand. This is going to go to my graveyard. I'm going to use the 2 mana I just got with that to play the Retriever. Sack the Retriever to the Ironworks to get the Workshop Assistant back. And then I won't get another Construct, obviously, but I will still get a trigger there. And then sack the 2 Constructs for 4 mana. 3 of it to play the Assistant. So we got 1 left, right? Sacrifice to the Clark. So we've got 3, and that brings this back. So there's 1 left. And I believe brings this back. So there's 3 left. 0, 2. I think we need 1 more mana. Am I thinking of that right? I think my count's off, but I think it's there. I'll link the combo page for this, because I have a feeling I got this slightly wrong. I'll link that down in the description so you could see the EDH rec explanation for it in case I managed to mess that one up. But let's get into playtest number 2. Keep it at 3 land with Brass's Tunnel Grinder. There's the Stride Hanger. There's a Blasting Station. And feed the Swarm. So play Mountain turn 1. I don't think there's anything I can do but just get a Battle Axe down here. Turn 2 will Blade the Dragon Skull Summit. I kind of like the idea of just getting Flamewar in on the backside, right? Get it in, get it started. Turn 3, I can get the Battleforge attached, but that's going to take my whole turn if I do that. I will get a... If I do that, I'm exiling 4, flipping over, and then I could pay 1 to flip it back if I wanted to, right? And get a counter on it by sacrificing the Battle Axe counter. Or I could take the turn to set up Stride Hanger Automaton and try to do that. Because the only problem with this backside is it's only a vehicle it's only a creature on my turn. Which means on my opponent's turn, the Battle Axe would fall off, right? I could also Brass's Tunnel Grinder, get rid of a card or 2 here and draw a couple and start that. The only problem is you can't descend a token, so I'd kind of have to be careful. I guess that would be, right, setting up the... But I kind of like the Automaton. Get in for 2. So we see a Swamp and a Sticky Fingers. Come back to our turn. Now it's over on the front side. Again, I could attach, leaving me 2 mana left. I could use it for something like Feed the Swarm, but I think we attach. If I pay 1 to pitch my hand, what am I losing? Really just the Brasses, but I'm getting Sticky Fingers, which I could play this turn, and Swamp. The nice part is if I guarantee myself hitting my opponents, it's always flipping back over to the front side, and I won't lose the aura or the equipment, right? I think that's what we'd have to focus on. So I think I'm going to do it. I think it makes some sense to do it. Well, I guess I can do it after combat. I don't have to do it now, right? Oh, I don't have the artifact to sacrifice. So I have to try to hit on the front side. And let's say we do, we do get a hit in. Then we can pay 1 to flip it over to the backside. And yeah, so maybe it makes more sense to wait the turn then, since I don't have anything to sacrifice to flip it to the backside. Maybe it makes more sense to actually tunnel grind this turn, pitch the station, and maybe a Bajuka Bog, and I draw 2, right? That many +1. Now I've got a counter on the tunnel grinder, right? My thought there is just try to create the most value I can that turn. Now here on the next turn, we've got 5 mana. Still needing artifact that I can sacrifice, right? I can pitch my hand to get the sticky fingers, which could do it, but I really don't want to. So I think I just have to attach here and get attacking. I'm not on the backside, but that's okay. I get a copy of this and a Thopter. Sack the copy to Flamewar. Well, I don't know that I'll tell you what, I don't know that I want to sacrifice the copy just yet, because that's going to become not a creature, right? And then I'd have a couple of mana left. I can always attach just the Stride Hanger if I want to. Or I could remove something with Feed the Swarm. I'm just trying to think of how do I manipulate this so I'm still sacrificing something, but then it, because now I can sack this axe to the Flame War. Right, turn it over, attack, probably going to exile 4, right? And then it's going to flip back over, right, when it does. Now it's going to keep it and keep it here. That's going to make a copy of it and a Thopter. And then now I'm thinking pitch my hand to get everything back out of exile, which is going to descend because I put lands right into my graveyard. So we're going to get another counter on Brasses. And I don't want to flip over right now because, right, it's going to turn into a vehicle, which isn't going to keep the battle axe on it. I have what? Couple mana left. I could put the sticky fingers on here if I want to. Play the Fireweaver, right? Just kind of prep for the next turn. And now, we're making some tokens, which is going to dole out some damage to the Fireweaver. If we can get the Brasses Tunnel Grinder turned over, right, we can start discovering. And I think we're not in a bad shape on this one. A little bit of a slow start, kind of fumbling through this mechanics here. But this is why it's good to playtest and understand how these interactions are working together so that we can better plan, not only for our games, but in the future. Well, it's getting playtest number 3 here with a 4-lander with Dark Ritual, Mayhem Devil, and Monument to Endurance. Again, one of our great discard payoffs. I could get the Endurance down turn 1 by just blitzing out the Dark Ritual, because it makes sense. I think for the moment there's nothing else to do, and it gives us some good value to keep going forward. That's kind of great. We get the Flamewar on the backside. Now when we turn over, right, we could potentially get some good value. Turn 3, we see Jeska. Jeska's a really interesting Planeswalker. So it enters the battlefield with the loyalty counter for each time we cast our commander. For 0, we can choose a creature, and if it would deal combat damage to our opponents, it deals triple that damage instead. This is going to be a nice thing for Flamewar to make it a real threat. The problem is if I do this turn, if I do this and I 0 the Flamewar, yes, it can deal 6 and exile 6, but I'm also leaving Jeska wide open. So I don't know if it's the best option this turn. Like, I'll just play the Mayhem Devil and hit somebody. I exile 2. I like the Marionette Master. That's a good sign that we might have some good success. Here we see Cranial Plating, which I like. The problem is I just need an artifact to sacrifice, right? I don't have one. I really want. And if I get my hand, I guess I have the Blasting Station. But yeah, now we're in this awkward position, but I don't really have a good artifact to sacrifice. I could, play the Cranial Plating. I could play Jeska and wait. Maybe it makes more sense to do the Jeska for extra. I just don't really want to play Cranial Plating and then sack it immediately, because Cranial Plating feels like a great threat for later. Maybe we do need to do it this turn to get, access to more things. Because now we're hitting for 3, Duretti, Adaptive Omni Tool, Junk Diver. Well, there we go. Now it's perfect because I can get Duretti to get it back. So that's absolutely no problem at all. Come to the next turn, play that in. I think we have the trawler, which is another one of those things that can get something back. I can get the trawler back. I'm thinking Jessica. Well, yeah, and then pitch my hand to get the exile cards back and flip it over. And then it doesn't flip over because I need to sacrifice. But this has 2 Monument to Endurance triggers. I think I would do 3 to everybody and make a treasure. Right now, there's my way to flip over. Jessica comes in as a 1. Sack the treasure to Flamewar to flip over. 0 with Jessica, so if nobody has 2 blockers, this could be 12 damage and 12 cards exiled, right? Could be a big hand to get ourselves into. If that's the case, right, 1, 2. Nettle Cyst. Crime Novelist isn't bad. That was a big chunk on somebody that's really going to hurt. And then I don't believe we have much mana left this turn because of sacrificing and paying for Jessica. I think we really only have 1 mana left this turn. So there's nothing I can do until next turn. But I want to try to get these pieces down, I think, before I just straight pitch my hand. Like, my thought would be try to get something like the Omni Troll down. I guess really all we need to do is get Duretti down, right? Because as soon as we pitch this hand to these, we could have then, sacrifice an artifact to get something back. I think we have the pieces here. Again, it's just finding these intricate lines where we have our things and working them towards value. But let me know, what do you think of Flamewar down in the comment section below, and I will catch you all in the next one.